Hello viewers, today we will be cleaning and servicing a Honeywell fan. This is one of many things I bought and just never used it, which is the very terrible. I need to stop doing that. I thought this was Duracraft, but it's not. It's Honeywell. It appears to have the same blade as the Duracraft box fans did. This is a pretty rare model. It's a 2-speed, and the model number is HT-60, and according to the UL sticker, it is from the 2002. Getting this apart has already presented a significant challenge because these 4 screws up here at the top are a hex bit of some kind. Now I have the bit for it. The problem is it's about 1.5 inches down, and this extension that I have for the hex bit will not fit down there. I tried using an Allen key, didn't have one that fit. So what I've had to do, and I've done this a couple of times with these stupid security type bits, is I take a small screwdriver like this, a common one, and sometimes you can put it in between the top of the bit there, and get it out like this. Now the problem with this is that a lot of times you don't have enough mechanical advantage to loosen a regular screw with these very thin drivers. So what I did here is I took a C-clamp and I put this around the screwdriver like this. Well, that time it didn't work. Of course, when I did this off the video, it worked fine. Okay, so with it like that, I can put this down in here and get it into the screw. Can't tell if it's threading or not. You have to use the bigger one. Yeah, that'll work if I could get it on there. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use that bigger one. Can't see what I'm doing, so I'm having a hard time getting it onto the top of the screw. There we go, it just grabbed. So now, using the mechanical advantage from the C-clip, I'll be able to thread this out of there. Or we can finish it with the smaller one. Okay, so that's out. Those are going to go right in the scrap metal pile. I'm not playing games with that trash anymore. Or actually, you know what I could do? I could put them in the bottom, but what's the point? It's ridiculous. It's just a stupid scheme to make people throw the fan out when it gets dusty. And it's kind of dumb too, because anybody that's inclined enough to clean a fan like this is probably going to be able to get past that, like we are here. Okay, that was completely and totally ridiculous. But now these 4 screws are out. And this is the bit that we're working with here. Unblur. And I do have a bit that'll fit this in my box here. It's maybe a T8 or a T9 perhaps. Yeah, it's a T9. And so I suppose I could put these screws down there and move those screws up here. Wouldn't be quite enough, but I think it would be fine. Those screws are never going in those holes again, that's for sure. Alright, now we can get the remaining screws out of the bottom portion of the unit. Wow, we can't interchange them because these screws are a lot longer. Okay, then those really are just scrap at this point then. Okay, now we're inside the unit. It's quite dirty. And, here we go again. It's got one of those stupid things on the blade. I hate those things. Just know why they can't just put a stinking nut on there, because that's what should be on there. So now we have to get past this as well. Now this, I kind of just bend this out a little bit. It's about as much as you can go before it breaks. Now let's see if I can kind of wiggle this off at all. Doesn't look like it's coming. The shaft is very rusted, so this is going to be a challenge to get off of here. There it goes. So that got damaged, but probably not damaged enough that I can't reuse it, so that's that. And now the blade's not going to come off the shaft. Nope, that's not coming off at all. Okay, so I don't want to tap it because these bearings could deteriorate at any moment. So I think I'm going to try using the pullers. Now I know this probably looks like overkill, but I've had way too many lessons in not using the correct tools and applying pressure where it shouldn't be. It's pretty hard to break a blade with this if you use this carefully, which of course we're going to do. Because this, we can control exactly where the force is going, and it's only going there, it's not going anywhere else. So I'm slowly tightening this up, and it is pulling off the shaft. The shaft is pressed in about 1/4 of an inch or so, and there we go, it's off. And if we do it this way, you know, it just goes better, because now the blade's not broken. There was no risk of tapping on the shaft and breaking those bearings, because some of those bearings, I don't know exactly what era it was. I know the ones in the late 90s had a tendency to just deteriorate, and we don't want that to happen. So anyways, that's that. Blade is off. This is actually one of my favorite tools that I have, just because it just works great almost every time I use it. Now, hopefully, here on out, we won't have any more complications. We're going to remove the switch. Those are pretty long screws too. And we'll remove the motor. We have to pull the knob off the switch, which is not going to be easy. Maybe I'll just pull it from this side. Okay. And now we have a stinking strain relief. And those are always fun to get off. Okay, so let's see here. There's two options that we have. We can attempt to undo these and leave the wire in place, or we can try to remove the strain relief. I tend to think it'll be less damaging if we just remove these, so let's give that a try. Now we're going to take note here that the blue side of the motor goes to the striped side of the cord, which is the low side. And sometimes these remove and are reused very easily. Sometimes they don't remove correctly, so let's see what happens. I'm going to try to crimp this in the opposing direction that it was crimped. And that worked perfectly, so let's see if we had the same results with this one. That worked perfectly as well. That was a good decision. Okay, so now the motor is separatable from the rest of the unit. And now we can set that aside to be serviced, and we can wash everything. I'm not going to take apart this thing on the side unless it's really easy. Now that looks far more complicated than is necessary to disassemble, so I'm not going to remove that. Oh, jeez, that wasn't even in a frame. I was talking about these things here. I don't want to remove that. I just don't think there's a reason to. We're going to service the motor now. There is some rust on the shaft, both up here by the bearing and here at the front. So I've plugged it back in so that we can turn it on and clean the shaft off with sanding paper. I have two grits here. We're going to start with a coarser piece, and then we'll finish with a finer grit. This is a really quiet motor. It's almost inaudible. Okay, the shaft is cleaned now. So we can remove these screws and open up and get to the bearings. I'm going to try to be pretty careful with these bearings because it seems like the metal could be very soft. I don't want to risk anything breaking. Okay, we've got the rear off alright. And there's the front. They must have used a really good quality lubricant on here because this is all clean in here. That's great. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of cleaning here. Get some of this dust off of the motor. Okay, that's good enough for that. Oh, we gotta put the front bearing too. I almost forgot about that. Okay, now that's good enough. Really nothing on here to wipe off. This is so clean. This is kind of unusual. Okay, so now we'll put some new oil in there. This is the Zoomspout oiler, specifically for electric motors. You can also use the blue can of the 3-in-1. Because this is for fans. So we're going to put a little bit of oil down into here. A couple drops around the sides. And we'll do the same thing on the front. Let that seep in for a few minutes. Now it's time to reassemble. Start by putting the rear bearing on. Put a little bit of oil on the shaft here. Just a very small amount. There's going to be an air pocket that we have to kind of overcome on the rear bearing there. And actually what I'll do as well, no, it's got oil, okay. So I'll put that onto there. And this, see, it's going to kind of like spring back out. Eventually that has to be overcome. It's spinning very freely, but it's not going back the way it should be. Okay, now slide the front bearing on. After we put the screws in, we'll get it into alignment, and then that won't be an issue anymore. The screws are not going in very nicely. And these screws do not have to go very tight. They just need to go firm enough that they won't come undone easily. Okay, so now to align it, we're simply going to strike the shaft with a screwdriver a couple of times. Now the motor is aligned and ready to go. I'll plug it in just to test it. It's running. Okay, so now we can begin reassembling the fan. Okay, we'll begin by rewiring the motor back into place. Hopefully this will go together just as easily as it came apart. Don't really see any reason why it shouldn't. And the switch, I think, goes like this. We want to check it just to make sure that it's not upside down, otherwise the labeling on the positions won't line up correctly. Okay, that's correct. So we can proceed. Clean this switch off as well as I should have. I put the switch leads going straight down behind it, and then I just jam these underneath there. It's very tight and I don't like that, but I don't know how else to get it to work. Okay, let's test it again to make sure everything is still working. Seems to be. A little piece of plastic shearing off there. I'm going to take that off because that'll make annoying noises while the thing is running. It may still, because it looks like the molding was slightly defective on there. Okay, so we'll slide the blade back on. It's fitting very tightly, which is fine in this case because this way it won't be coming off by itself. It's on there very secure. Spin down time is quite good. Now that's going to be an issue. It'll probably get offset once the front guard is on there. Jeez, that's very out of balance. Surprised it hasn't worn through the bearings yet. I think we're going to attempt to balance that because that's just way out of line. To balance this, it's kind of a tedious process. I'm going to take a blob of hot glue and jam this into a random portion of the blade. I'm not exactly sure where the blade is out of balance. And with that glue in there, it's either going to get better or worse, and that will kind of give us an idea of where the balancing needs to take place. That doesn't seem to really be any different. This could also not be enough glue. Have to make a bigger blob and try it with that. That seems to be better. So now since that seems to be better, we're going to try to move it over to the right one, and let's see if that makes it better. Because it could be this blade is not as heavy as the others. It's still pretty out of balance. I'm gonna make a bigger blob of glue and see if that helps. I don't think this is enough to fix it. It's pretty far out of balance. Oh, that's almost perfect. Okay, so it's not that blade. This is much better now. Alright, that's definitely better than it was. So maybe it's just not enough weight. So we'll notate it's right there. That could also mean this blade is heavier than the other two. I'm going to make this blob of glue a little bit bigger. test it with that. Okay, so I'll put this back in here. And let's see if that makes it better now that it's bigger. It's still not quite perfect, so I gotta spend some time testing this out, but that's the process. I'm not gonna record the whole thing because it's not very interesting. Of course, as soon as I turned off the camera, I got it. It's this blade that's not as heavy. So now that we know, because this amount made it almost perfect. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to take some glue and I'm going to put it in here. And this is low temperature glue. Okay, so we'll put this back on and let's see how the balance is. That's pretty good. That's really quite good, actually. Alright, great. I'm going to leave it at that. Now that the blade is balanced, we can go ahead and put it on there securely. That's what the inside looks like now. And here's that stupid thing. It's probably not even necessary. I think the blade is on there hard enough. Yeah, maybe we'll just go without this. Yeah, that's never going to come off. Okay, well it'll come off but not by itself. Alright, so now I have to find some screws that are like this because I'm not putting these stupid screws back in. I suppose what I could do is convert it into common heads. I could just cut through the middle and make it a common. Let me see if I have any screws on here. If not, that's what we'll have to do. There, now it's a common. Easy to remove, easy to put back. This front guard was extremely difficult to clean. There was like a white residue, almost like a sheetrock dust or something like that, caked onto it. I got most of it off, but I had to go back and do it again because there was still too much left the first time around. Okay, so the guard sits on here like that. And now let's screw it back in using these common screws. Should go in nicely with this standard bit. Much better. I don't want to make it too tight because it's only going into plastic threads. These screws are easy enough because they're a standard shape as well. Gonna need a longer bit though. That's nice. Okay, that concludes it. It's all cleaned up now. So let's go ahead and turn this on and see how much better it works. Hi. Still very noisy. I think it's aerodynamically not the best thing out there, but it moves a lot more air now. Okay, and low. It's relatively quiet on low. This would be nice at a desk or something. Nice gentle breeze.